Now that I look at the options.
Okay, oh, come on, y'all, wait. Okay, so in case y'all didn't know, our friend Ricky Martin and the person we're going to be talking about in today's presentation, he is referred to as the king of Latin pop. If you got this one wrong, I'm not trying to shame you, but come on, get your head in the game. Okay, so, next question. Yay, Caroline. Pick the Puerto Rican flag.
Oh, wait. Do you need help differentiating which is a flag? Oh, I'm not stupid.
Wow. Wow. Oh, wait, hold on. I gotta make it. So, this one right here, that's our Puerto Rican flag. Does anybody want to know what 2 is? Cuba. Okay, 3?
Chile?
Sure. Yes. Chile. And then the 4th one? Yeah, it's Panama. How exciting. Y'all know y'all's flag. Oh, Emma came for Caroline's next. Okay.
I hesitated.
True or false? Puerto Rico is a part of the United States. If you get this one wrong, we have to have a conversation. Okay, now we gotta have a conversation. So Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States. It is not a state. However, its territory status does make it a part of the United States family. And that's okay. Now you know, and now you learned something today. Oh wow, look at our friend Caroline go. Okay. What is the capital of Puerto Rico?
I'm not going to get confident because they're wrong.
I'm just gonna assume the person who put Rio Grande got too excited and put the wrong square. So yes, San Juan is the Puerto Rican capital. I'm so proud y'all knew that. Okay. Oh wow, look at Travis. He has a little. Oh look, you got 4 in a row, friend. Wow. Okay. What is the population of Puerto Rico?
Hilarious. I don't They're all fire.
It's okay. This one was a little tricky. The population of Puerto Rico is 3.195 million people on the island. So, how exciting.
You're not sure.
Okay, let's see. Lynn! Wow! Okay. Who is the governor of Puerto Rico?
Okay,
It's okay if you don't know this, we're here to learn. It's okay. Yeah, so there's kind of a split between Rogelio and Vasquez, but yes, now Puerto Rico has a new governor. She was a part of the cabinet, and because stuff we're going to talk about later. She is now the governor's house. I'm excited for her. She did not want to take it, but she did it anyways. Where was Ricky Martin born? Yes. I really like that picture. He looks so excited to be alive. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, at least I got the right little island. Okay, so he was born in San Juan, and he was born in Puerto Rico. How exciting. Wow, friend, you're doing so great.
John Cena is the most common.
I don't know what that. How many albums did Ricky Martin sell throughout his musical career?
What?
He looks so young in that.
1999.
Wow, look at him go. Okay, that's his favorite. So yes, throughout his musical career, Ricky Martin has sold 70 million albums. Last question. Oh wow, look at you go, Caroline, you made a comeback. Ricky Martin's throwing smoke by
I do know who this is. I do know who this is. I don't know what you're doing. That's
Oh wow. 1999. Okay. It's fine. So that was our fun little game. Let's see. Lynn, you won! Yay! Let's give a round of applause for our contribution. I forgot your prize downstairs, so you're gonna follow me after the event downstairs to the office. Okay, thanks. So now I'm gonna turn it over. Well, we're gonna do some quick questions. One little thing. So, hi, my name is Amethyst Marroquin. I am Gabe's host extraordinaire, and I am also a student coordinator for the Department of Diversity Initiatives. And part of my job is to coordinate and co-chair the Latinx Heritage Month Planning Committee. So today you are here for Ricky Martin, or not just another pretty face, Ricky Martin the activist. And the reason why we decided to do this event is that we wanted to do, well, before I say why, how many of y'all know what other Heritage Month is going on right now in the month of October? Right. So, Latinx Heritage Month and LGBTQ+ History Month overlap with one another. So as a department, we wanted to throw an event that represented both of these different identities. And who better to do that than Ricky Martin? And so, Ricky, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Professor Benko, Spanish professor. I am probably Ricky Martin's #1 fan, or you could say stalker, but fan will do. So here's my t-shirt. So, of course, who was asked to do the Ricky Martin event but me? So here I am. Here.
And so, going through this event, there's just a couple of little things that I think that y'all, as students who are going to be participating, need to know. So as a department, we try to have very conversation-based events, which I know can get pretty uncomfortable, right? Like talking to strangers and then talking to presenters, like that's an uncomfortable thing. But the more that we talk and share the air and respect one another and their thoughts and their feelings, the easier this event goes. Does that make sense? Great. So the way that we want to start off this event is through our first discussion question. Are you aware of the events that transpired in Puerto Rico over the summer?
Anybody know anything about what happened this summer? That was 2 years ago. that. But the hurricane does play into what happened this summer.
So the governor and a couple other politicians had a group chat that got leaked where they trashed artists like Ricky Martin, and then they made fun of the people who were homeless after the hurricane, and it talks about how he wanted to shoot the president, or somebody wanted to shoot the mayor of San Juan, and a couple other really controversial topics got leaked.
I mean, that pretty much is like a very broad overview. Professor Banco, you want to give them the nitty-gritty?
Okay, so big moment was August 2nd when Ricardo Rosselló resigned from office. This follows weeks of protests. 12 days into the protest, they started the impeachment process for the governor, and the governor at that point said, no, I should probably resign. Not only was the governor affected by this and his inner circle, the protests and the media and the artists on social media also went after his wife. And there was an incident where she was, before the scandal broke, she had helped out at a women's homeless shelter. And once this broke, the shelter kindly asked her to never come again and to erase any fact that she had ever been there on her own social media. So it wasn't just the governor that was getting it. And one thing you should know is that protest and collective action is something that's very common in Puerto Rico. And so even though the protest started out about these pages of text, which is like about 900 printed pages of text going on, it was also about Hurricane Maria and the way the governor had handled the hurricane and his denial of all the people that had passed due to the hurricane. So as far as the texts were going, this group chat through Telegram, they basically were publishing texts from January of 2018 to January of 2019. And basically the texts were crude, sexist, and homophobic, and here are the ones that we can kind of put up there. So he referred to Melissa Mark Viverito as a whore, and who she is she's a Puerto Rican-born New York City politician. She was the speaker of the city council. And then he also threatened to shoot Carmen Yulín Cruz, who we heard was the mayor of San Juan, who was one of his harshest critics. He also, in another text, basically said to her, did you get off your meds? Okay, then he said that the Financial and Oversight Board of the US government can go F itself. And that group, the Financial Oversight Board, that controls the money situation on the island. You pretty much do not want to tell the US government that controls your money and your economy to go F itself. Then they joked about the dead, the number of dead after Hurricane Maria, and especially said that they now have cadavers that they can feed the cows with. And then they really focused on Ricky Martin and commented that he hooks up with men because women do not measure up, and he is the stereotype of patriarchy, suffocation. So those are the basic background information as to what happened in Puerto Rico this summer. And so really, we're gonna lead into our, speaking of Ricky Martin, okay? So along with Bad Bunny and Calle 13, those were the celebrities that led the protests and really were vocal on social media. And Ricky Martin, activism is not something foreign to him, okay? And he's always been very active in political things, but he especially about 10 years ago became very active in human trafficking and trying to get rid of human trafficking and teach about human trafficking and bring it to the forefront. After a trip to India, he went to India, he saw human trafficking firsthand, and he said, no, we have to stop this. And he's even testified before Congress about this human trafficking problem that the world has. And his foundation, the Ricky Martin Foundation, Their mission statement basically says, let me find it. His mission statement for the Ricky Martin Foundation says that it is to denounce human trafficking and educate through research and community initiatives. And because of his work with his own foundation and other groups, he has been named a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. And a Goodwill Ambassador for UNICEF is a celebrity who has been noted because of their commitment to causes. So you've probably, excuse me, heard of Angelina Jolie being a UNICEF ambassador. Woody Allen's ex-wife Mia Farrow is an ambassador. So the Goodwill ambassadors are celebrities that the United Nations deem super important in bringing really cause-worthy, controversial things to light for other people. He also has earned the Leadership in Arts Award for people who support arts and art education in schools. The ALMA Award, which is for Latinx people in music, TV, and film. Billboard Spirit of Hope Award is another award from the music industry, noting all the good stuff that he does. And then the Human Rights National Visibility Award, he just got that in September. Okay, so that leads me to the next question. If I could go the right way. Do you think Ricky's intersecting identity of being a gay Puerto Rican man played a role in his advocacy? Do you guys want to discuss it amongst yourself or just start throwing answers out at me? What do you want to do? Don't everybody talk at once. What do you think?
So do you mean like it played a role in like him being like a big voice in it and like relating to other people because of like, you know, he's a Puerto Rican man, but he's also a part of the LGBT community, so like he can relate to a lot of people? Is that like what the question's asking? So yeah, I mean I think it does because I mean he's well known for his music, but a lot of people probably also relate to him from being the LGBT community, but also just being a Puerto Rican and going through all the insane amount of stuff that they went through with Hurricane Maria and now this stuff with the governor resigning. It's just a lot, so I think they can find a sense of like solace in him and like relating to his words and finding strength in him. So.
Okay, any other thoughts?
I think his intersecting identity is kind of what tossed him into the summer, right? So like, if we relate back to what we learned, right? So that he got kind of tossed in because those messages got leaked. And think about what the message was saying, right? It's that it was almost like belittling him because he is Puerto Rican and gay. And I think that when we have conversations like this, we assume that marginalized groups accept other marginalized groups, right? Like we're all being oppressed and we're all suffering together, so we're all going to be friends. And that's not true, right? Like I think that being a Latino man and being gay is an intersecting identity that wasn't accepted by everybody. Because as someone who's part of the community, there is still a stigma against LGBTQ plus individuals, and like a lack of understanding and a lack of acceptance behind that. So like to me, I think that at least for the summer, that's what kind of had to toss him into his role of advocacy, was the fact that someone called out this intersecting identity.
Right, and as far as his identity as being a gay male, for a long time, he didn't accept that own identity himself. In fact, he was in a relationship with a woman for 14 years, and at first thought he was bisexual, and then decided that he was gay, and then he kept it a secret until this Barbara Walters interview where she basically pressured him into coming out of the closet. Okay, so that was a spotlight thrust upon him that he wasn't necessarily prepared or ready to have when it happened. Any other comments?
Morgan, what do you think?
Well, it probably did just because those text messages were being straight.
they call him out explicitly. So he could either choose to respond in a negative way or choose something that would draw attention in a positive light to advocate for something bigger than himself.
Okay. I think I goes together the right way. Okay, so in his own words, okay, so he says, I get infatuated with this one comes from an interview with the magazine Ocean Drive in Miami. I get infatuated with my philanthropic work and my foundation because if I have the power to reach masses of people with my music, my concerts, and talk about things that really matter, in this case human trafficking, then that is something I think people need to know about. I am someone who takes advantage of my career to touch many people in many ways. So the question that ties into this quote is, do you think people with large amounts of influence have a responsibility to speak out on social issues?
Yes.
Yes, why?
I mean, without the people supporting you, and more than likely people just like you, without their support, you wouldn't even be to the status that you are now. So if you reach that height, I kind of feel like, I mean, everyone's not responsible. That's just the reality of it. I do think they should, but I would hate to say, like, I don't know if responsibility is the right word, because if you give too much responsibility to an irresponsible person, it still doesn't take the effect. But I do think they should speak out, because I mean, without us, you wouldn't even get to the height that you are now. So
Okay.
I say they should because a lot of these issues also involve them. Just because you have money doesn't really mean anything. Like with everything, I guess to like relate to something I can relate to. So like Black Lives Matter movement and like all the Black artists, like Beyonce and Rihanna and everything getting involved, like just because they have money, those issues still involve them. Like that would not absolve them of that situation if they were in it. So I guess like it's kind of also giving like back in a way. They do have that platform to be able to reach other people, and people do tend to listen more to people who have influence. So even if just me going out and like protesting and stuff doesn't work, someone who has like a wider range of reach across millions of people probably more. If that makes sense.
That makes sense. Really cool. Anybody else have any opinions? Anything they want to add?
Well, also, if you have like that much influence, then there are probably people in, say, someone's fan base that may not be educated on some sort of issue and not even know that it is an issue. But if the artist that they're interested in talks about it and advocates for it, then they can become educated on that topic because they're paying attention to this artist who brings up the topic, and now they'll know more about it and can make a decision to go out and help for something they may not have known about previously.
Hey, RJ, you shook your nodded your head when when our friend over there with the very pretty hair.
Me?
Yes, when she talked about the word responsibility, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I see where you're going with it. Responsibility, you're right, isn't exactly the word for that, but I think we're all put here on this earth to be stewards of the earth, and to do that, we have to be able to make it better. So if anybody sees something wrong with humanity, with the world, we should be wanting to fix it. So if somebody sees the wrong, then we should all come together and work together to make it better and fix it to make it the best it possibly could be.
Well, in terms of the people that do have those big voices, like they have that opportunity and they have that fan base where if they know that there's a certain amount of people following them that are interested in what they do and they have the opportunity to voice their opinion, I think that they should, because they actually seem like they can reach a larger group of people at one time. and therefore educating everybody on the matter, and then they can give their voice and reason, because nothing's gonna get changed if nobody talks about it. So I think that, because at the end of the day, like you were saying, the people that have large amounts of money, they're all still people, and they have their own opinions, whether people agree with them or not. Like, people should still voice their own opinions, otherwise nothing's gonna get changed, so.
Right. Okay, so when we put this in perspective, and we're talking about Ricky Martin and how big of a star he is, and so as we saw in our Kahoot, he's considered the king of Latin pop, and we also saw in our Kahoot that he has sold 70 million records, and he's also won multiple Grammys, English language Grammys, and Latin Grammys. And he's been around for forever, okay? I've loved Ricky Martin since I was 5 years old, and he was in the boy band Menudo from Puerto Rico, and that's like 46 years of fandom. 36 years of fandom. So he was in Menudo at the age of 12. He actually auditioned like 2 or 3 times, so they finally accepted him. And the deal with Menudo still exists, and when you turn 18, they kick you out of the band and replace you with another young kid that can be in the band until they're 18, and then they can. It's like, imagine if the Backstreet Boys did that, you know? Like, you kept kicking members out when they turn 18 and get a new person. Once he got kicked out of Menudo, he decided that he wanted to try acting, his hand at acting. And he's been in telenovelas in Mexico. He's been on General Hospital in the US. 1994 is when he debuted on General Hospital in the US, playing a Puerto Rican singer, of all things. And he was on Broadway in the musical Evita. And just recently, he was in that Johnny Versace movie, the assassination of Johnny Versace that was on FX. He played Johnny Versace's lover in that movie. Living La Vida Loca, 1999, the year that song came out. That song is the trigger point for the Latin pop explosion that happened in late 1999, early 2000s. And how many of you guys knew that he's an author of children's books? He's a New York Times bestseller. His books have been translated into English, and if he writes them in Spanish, they're translated to English. If he writes them in English, they're translated to Spanish. So yeah, he's written children's book, and he's had a Las Vegas residency where, a casino hotel puts him in there and he does concerts several nights a week. He's had that twice, okay? He just finished up a residency and has moved to Los Angeles with his husband and their children, and they're expecting baby number 4 in the coming future. So that's how big of a star Ricky Martin is. Any questions, comments, anything you want to know since I'm his biggest fan?
What's his favorite color?
Oh, I don't know that.
Okay, well, I mean,
Now I'm gonna have to find that out.
What's his birthday?
I don't know.
oh my god.
Oh my god, I'm sorry! All I know is that I've loved him since I was 5.
I thought he was the biggest fan with Lil, he had like a hamster or something when he was
No, I did have an office fish, and my office fish's name was Enrique Martin Morales, which is Ricky Martin's real name. But Enrique died.
Okay.
Over the weekend, when I came in on Sunday, it was bad. But anyway, any other questions or anything you want to contribute to our conversation about Ricky Martin? How many of you guys knew that he was still active? As in, when you think Ricky Martin, you think something other than Living La Vida Loca.
Yeah.
I can always count on you, Danny.
Of course.
Always count on you. Amethyst, do you have anything else?
Actually, can we go back to the question of celebrities and something? Because I just thought of something, because that's something my mind works is that when it's not important.
This one?
Yeah. So part of the department's goal, right, is not only do we teach you about these things, but we try to teach y'all how to be effective communicators on these issues and like right terminology and things like that. BTW, we're having a safe zone training tomorrow. Be there at the square. So.
I feel like threatened by your place. You're supposed to come.
Be there. It's a time. Oh, Haas, what time's your safe zone training?
4:30.
4:30. It's a nice event too. Anyway, that's not what we're talking. So but part of the department's goal too is to teach y'all how to be effective communicators and how to be resilient communicators, right? How many of y'all know who Laura Ingraham is? She's the person who told LeBron James to shut up and dribble when he.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay. See, I figured if I said shut up and dribble, somebody would know who I was talking about. So how do we respond to criticisms like that? Like, how do we respond to individuals who have that sentiment where celebrities with large amounts of influences are just supposed to stay in their lane and not ruin football for us, not ruin music for us, not ruin basketball for us?
I think they're looking at the situation the wrong way.
What was that?
So I think they're looking at the situation the wrong way.
Probably. But how do we communicate that? How do we respond to people who say something like shut up and dribble? I haven't heard anything from this people over here. What do you think? I'm calling you next. So there's not a wrong answer. We're all trying to learn together. It's okay.
I guess you just put the criticism aside and just do what you have, like what you want to do. Like there's a point where you get like, you know, you get mature and you're like, it doesn't matter what you say, you just do you and you do it better.
Got it? That's good. That's a good piece of advice. What about over here? What do y'all think about it? Also, if you don't like this technique of calling, you could blame Professor Bingo. I learned it from her in Spanish class. So,
Don't put that on me.
she says, una voluntario or victim. And I was like, I don't want to be a victim, I'll go. Like, I So what do y'all think? Okay. What do you mean by that? That's fine. So, the reason why I bring this up is because I feel like most of us in this room kind of have like, who are vocal, let me put it that, who are vocal have the consensus that like celebrities have this platform, they have the resources, they should be speaking out on these things, they should be educating their fan bases on these things, they should be telling their fans to go vote and telling their fans to support Black Lives Matter and all these things. But the problem is that like we all think this, but there are people outside of this room who don't think that, right? And who don't necessarily agree with, I see some of y'all nodding their heads now, that who, like, and I think that we all know people who don't agree with this, right? So we have to learn how to be effective communicators and how to communicate why things like celebrities having large platforms and educating their fan bases is important. And that's what Ricky Martin's doing, y'all. He's trying to teach us to live our best life.
Retweet.
Does anybody have any questions or discussions? We still got a little bit of time.
So where's Puerto Rico at now?
Well, they have the governor, and the governor doesn't necessarily want the job. Things have kind of settled down for right now, and it's been out of the news. So yeah, because when the governor resigned, there was the person that should have been next in line to be governor got kicked out of office. So then they had to go to somebody else. And then that person didn't want it, and then they kept going to other people, and that's how Wanda Vasquez ended up as governor.
She was very vocal about her not wanting it.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that friend who was like, and then you're like, pretty please, and they're like, yeah, that was poor Miss Vasquez throughout this whole process. She was like, and then like, at the last time she was like, okay, begrudgingly yes, but like, poor sis.
And the problem with this is that no one wants the liability of being governor of Puerto Rico. Because if you look at where Puerto Rico is at right now, it is in default of federal loans that are, okay, so we're gonna do a whole bunch of history in a couple of seconds. So 1898, Spanish-American War, Spain loses Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. Cuba gets to become its own country, the Philippines get to become their own country, and Puerto Rico gets to become a Commonwealth of the United States. So with the Jones Act, that's the act that made Puerto Ricans U.S. citizens. So they have all the benefits of being citizens except for voting for president and having voting members of Congress. Ooh, and they don't have to pay federal income tax. They get the benefits of being almost a state. Well, in the early 20th century, the US government was like, hey, wait a second. We are going to completely destroy the Puerto Rican economy by making it based on sugar, okay? So what had been an economy that had lots of agricultural things became focused on sugar. And then the bottom fell out on that, and then pharmaceutical companies basically dominated the economy of Puerto Rico. And so these pharmaceutical companies were testing their drugs on Puerto Ricans. And the US Navy was bombing islands off the coast of Puerto Rico. And so basically, you know, it was getting the worst end of being part of the United States. So now that's all coming to fruition, and the economy is destroyed in Puerto Rico. And it's in debt, trillions of dollars to the US government, and it can't pay it. And so nobody wants the political liability of being the governor of this island with so many problems. And the US government isn't doing anything to help it, it's actually putting more of a stranglehold on Puerto Rico. So no one wants to be governor because of the political liability. And the Governor Rosello, when he was governor, his father was actually governor in the early 2000s. And so he was a political legacy. And the thing about his dad, he was corrupt, just as much as his son was corrupt. So, Puerto Rico, quagmire of politics.
So is the new governor better than the most recent governor?
We're gonna find out because, you know, she's only been in power since like August. So it's too soon to tell.
No, mine's a totally different thing, so go ahead.
Oh, mine is too.
Oh, okay. Mine's like super short though. Ricky Martin's birthday is Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve, okay, now I know that. You can find me on campus and ask me and I'll be like, Christmas Eve. Okay, Danny.
Well, this just talking about in terms of responsibility. So this just makes me think. Sometimes they say you should separate the music from the artist, but there have been cases where the music pretty much it doesn't define the artist, but it tells a lot of their beliefs, what they're passionate about. So just I don't know if you know Childish Gambino, and yes, This Is America, and then J Balvin and
Yes.
blasted it. Yeah. So I mean, in this sense, for Ricky Martin, would you say that we have to separate the music from the artist, or is this? You know, I don't know all Ricky Martin songs, but
I don't think Ricky Martin has any super overtly political in-your-face music. So it's easy to just be like, oh, Ricky Martin, he's the king of Latin pop. It is bubblegum. And, you know, and his music, I don't know about y'all, but it makes me happy when I listen to it, especially when I grade exams. Ricky Martin today in my office. So, you know, it's not the case of like back in the day when I was in college, Rage Against the Machine was the band that was like the political stance band, and you couldn't separate Rage Against the Machine, the band, from their music because they were both political in their songs and outside of their songs. And I think Ricky Martin is political outside of his songs, but I mean, you know, with your boyfriend Maluma, you know, they're just singing about, you know, like fun days of hanging out with pretty ladies, you know, so.
Oh my god. But on the flip side of that, to your question, right? So like we talk about like the artists and like the politicalness of their song. I think you're also starting to see like the consumer part of that, right? So like you start to see like how many of y'all like noticed that, or were reading articles that like Taylor Swift, after she put out that song, yeah, that song, You Need to Calm Down. So like that was a very political song, right? And you saw two types of reactions when that song came out, right? You saw people who were like, oh heck yeah, like look at us go, look at sis go, look at her being an advocate, right? But then you also saw the flip side of people saying like, this wasn't the space, right? Like I'm just trying to enjoy your music. So you, on the flip side, you also see consumers are like, am I going to buy his music, knowing that he supports these people, even though his song isn't like super political. You know what I mean? And like these, like the idea that like your dollar has more power than what you think it does, kind of ties into this conversation of like, are there celebrities willing to take that financial hit to speak on social issues? And some are, like Ricky Martin is willing to, but some aren't. That we know that like kind of like to stay in the background of themselves. What's up, Brent?
I think it should also be addressed that like most artists also either engaged in it and have a very vague understanding of it, or when they do understand it, they understand it in a deeper meaning and deeper level, so it's like really personal to them. So like I saw the other day that Demi Lovato had somebody come at her and like be like, you need to address these certain issues that are going around in her personal life, and not only that, but within the United States. And she's like, well, I have no true valid opinion to discuss with you guys about it, so why should I do that? And like people were coming for her about that and everything. So I think with giving people who have a larger platform a lot of responsibility to discuss political matters is very personal and stuff, so it can tear down their views, and it can also change our own. So like as a consumer, like you were saying, it's hard for us to make our own decisions when we're relying on somebody that we listen to who produces music to feed us all this information when they only know as much as we know. So it's a very vague kind of like topic.
There's no guarantee that it's accurate.
Yeah, it's a lot of gray area.
I think at that point it just comes down to research. Instead of responding the way she did, she could like do research on it. Because if like she was getting involved with the Israeli government, knowing that we have ties with them because there's something going on in Palestine, and so obviously people are going to get mad about that, and instead of fighting back or whatever with them on social media, you should take the time that you be like, okay, why are my fans not about this?
Right.
And then kind of gain education for herself, and in that, the other people who don't know about it in her fan base can also learn from her.
What's up, Brent?
And I kind of feel like something we have to stop doing. Like that's why I was iffy about that word responsibility, because if someone, we kind of assume that, especially, so I'm just gonna use African American. So if it's an African American singer, I'm like, okay, she should be speaking out about these issues. Or if it's a Puerto Rican singer, some Puerto Ricans may feel, okay, well, we're both Puerto Rican, they should be speaking out about this. But in reality, like in hindsight, sometimes, even though they're like within your minority group, or they don't have the same views as you, and sometimes you get people that speak out about certain things and they end up doing your community more harm than good because they never agreed with whatever you were trying to get them to push them to say. Yeah, it didn't work. It ends up backfiring where it adds gas to the fire, and it's like, man, I wish they wouldn't have said anything, but you gave this person too much responsibility. You forced them to speak up about an issue that they don't understand, they haven't lived in since, 2000s when they blew up, but it's not always gonna be the case. So I just feel like we have to be very selective of who we give that responsibility to. Just because they have a platform, some of them don't need to use it. Some of them just need to,
Just shut up and sing.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of ties back into, see, there's always a method to Banquets of My Madness, right? That ties back into the question we were asking about intersecting identities, right? Like, just because Ricky Martin is a gay Puerto Rican man, does that mean that Ricky Martin has to be that spokesperson? Now, thankfully, in the case of the Puerto Rican protest, he took that on him, Bad Bunny and all his friends. They were like, we got this, we're gonna do this. But that leads into the question of is the Black experience monolithic? Is the LGBTQ plus experience monolithic? Is the Latina or Latino, Latinx experience around Olympic. And so is it because if I'm a part of this community, should I know these things? And if I don't know these things, am I wrong for not knowing them? Because I think like when we talk about like this question here, it's like we also forget that these celebrities are like people too. You know what I mean? Like we kind of put them on this like hierarchy pedestal and we're like at the top of this food chain, you should know about all Puerto Rican issues, right? But like that's not the case most of the time. Most of the time it's that thankful, like in the case of what we're talking about in this presentation, he did know what was going on. But what if the protest was about something he didn't necessarily know? And so what do you think that people in Puerto Rico and in the United States would look at Ricky Martin as be like, what should we do?
Well, and to bounce off of what she said, I think that because we look up to certain celebrities, we kind of expect, since we like them so much and we kind of find ourselves, like pieces of them to like that we relate to, that we kind of expect ourselves to have the same morals that they do, but we don't actually like critically think ourselves and be like, well, what do I think about this issue? Like, I don't have to just agree with them because I like them. Like, maybe I still like their music, but I don't agree with their morals. So I think a lot of people just assume that because like, oh, I like this person, like I should think the exact same things that they do. And a lot of people do that because, you know, oh, like, I like Taylor Swift, so I'm gonna agree with whatever she says, or I like this person, I'm gonna agree with whatever he or she says. So, like, we just kind of, we have to really create our own set of morals and truly, like, understand what we believe and not base it off of necessarily what other people believe.
So not jump on the bandwagon?
Yeah.
And like she said, Betty Boo here in the picture, I'm so sorry. But
Kaylin, her name's Kaylin.
I at some point I just think, you know, it has to be once you get to a certain level, like you have, I'm sure you have writers, you have public speakers on your side, you have lawyers, you have all these things. I just think it comes to a point where you just have to educate yourself on some things. Just, you know. Sometimes I didn't know. It's just like, well, you have the resources to find out. So it's like, I think it's one of those issues where tread lightly. Sometimes being ignorant to a situation it never excuses it. Whatever you decide to say or do, it never excuses it. People may be more forgiving for certain things, but I just think, especially if you have the resources to educate yourself on something, then take that opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Bouncing off what you said, like, if you have that platform and if you have those resources and you know that the things that you say are going to be heard by a lot of people, it comes back to that word responsibility. You know, there may not be a lot of responsible artists out there who should say things, but as artists who have a platform, they should kind of take on some of that responsibility to know that what they say will have a greater impact than what, you know, people who don't have that same platform might say. So, you know, if you're going to make a statement about something, do some research beforehand so that you know what you're talking about and you don't end up having a negative impact when you do something.
I'm thinking to relate to the research topic, it also falls back on us as the consumer, that it is important for us to not also be involved in what they're doing, but also be involved in our own terms of what's happening. Because once again, if we go back to just relying on them, like artists, actors, the whole 9 yards, if we rely on them all the time to give us that information, even with their research, it's hard to kind of form your own opinion around a biased statement being made about a topic already. So I think for consumers, it's also important to know and kind of be ahead of the game when it comes to an artist you're influenced by discussing the topic.
Was that right?
I think the big difference is talk is cheap. We hear that all the time. I think the big difference between like LeBron and shut up and dribble, that's completely ridiculous because LeBron is one of the most philanthropic athletes in America at this time. So for somebody to say something like that to him, I mean, LeBron is the figurehead at that because he's so good at going out in the community, building schools, paying tuition. He's got free schools all over the U.S. That right there is to a T exactly what you're supposed to do. Talk is cheap. Anybody can say whatever they want to say. It's actually going out in the community and putting your words to action. And that's why LeBron is the best at it.
And so is our friend Ricky. Look at our friend Ricky go. Ricky Martin be doing his thing and helping people. So we're about at the time where we're gonna slowly start wrapping up. So we have time for like one more comment or question. And then we'll have some parting words and then we'll skedaddle and y'all can go on with your activist life and do your research. So,
And eat lots of cookies.
and please eat the cookies. Please, please, please eat the cookies.
You don't have to tell me twice.
Okay, great, love it. One more question, comment, concern, emotional outburst. Do you have any comments, questions?
I have no emotional outbursts.